everyone, this is Jaeger here with Rushers Real Time, and today we are going to talk about targeting northern pike in the weeds. So right now where I'm at in our current stage of fishing for the year, we have the abundance of northern pike, and I've had a lot of people reach out and ask, what can I do to catch the northern pike? It's so weedy, I'm not able to catch them. Well guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I would strongly recommend to pack. So with the northern pike, they do use the weeds for cover. They do use that to hide, and like I said, it's their cover, and so they want to come out and they want to attack. But you have to get them out of that hiding area. So what I strongly recommend, well, first, make sure you pack a big net. Whether you're fishing in the bank or you're fishing on the boat, you want to pack that big net. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys some of the coolest things that you can pack for northern pike and targeting them in the weeds. So I do like to pack some bigger tubes. So we've got our tube baits here. So this is an oversized tube. And with a tube, you can rip through the weeds. You can actually cast them on the outskirts of the weeds, let them sit, and then rip. So you're letting it drop, rip, reel, rip, reel, rip. And so they're gonna see this tube. And so you're just ripping it. Now the cool thing is if there's bass in there by those pike, those bass will maybe be around those weeds too. So you'll be able to maybe find even a bass. So there's your tube bait. Now another bait, like these curl baits used for muskies, you know, just because they're a musky bait doesn't mean the northern pike aren't gonna hit these. The cool thing with these is these are not a sinking. These are floating in a way where they're not gonna go very deep. So with these rubber baits, you're gonna notice that they will hit these baits. And when you are out there throwing these things, I was just looking at this because I was throwing this the other day, and I see how much damage the pike already did to it. It took the tail, and so with these baits, that's one of the drawbacks. So when you're using these kind of things, because pike are just going to rip them up. And guys, just to show you, like, look at the teeth on this muskie here. So, you know, it can puncture that. And remember, they have over 400 teeth in their mouth. So if they grab it back here, they're just going to pull and rip. And so that tail, after you catch that fish, it's not going to really have much of an action. But who's to say you can't throw back out there and the fish aren't going to hit it? But one of the tips I'd suggest is if you know that it's super weedy out there and you only want to focus over the weeds, I'd strongly encourage to remove the treble hook underneath, because then you can just use this top hook, which is more than enough. One of the things that I'm not a big fan of is when you have multiple treble hooks, especially with northern pike, when you get them in, they love to twist. They love to, you know, in the net. If you got two big trebles that you're messing with in this net, there's nothing worse than when you're trying to do that and you've got an angry fish, you know. So you just want to sort of play it safe. But I strongly recommend these because these can be a great weedless bait. Another great option is these swim baits. So swim baits, you can work through weeds. They will paddle through them. They do pick up weeds. I'm not going to say there's a surefire guaranteed bait ever created that's never going to pick up a weed, because even weedless baits, they do get weeds. If you're fishing a high area of weed concentration, some of the best advice I can give you is to maybe throw something on top. Throw a plug on top, you know. But, you know, like these swim baits here, strongly recommend, because you can fish the outskirts, you can fish over the weeds. But like the plugs, you know, another great thing. Here's like a weedless, here's a buzz bait. This is a weed buzz bait. This thing here cranks through them. But again, like I said, it's not guaranteed a weedless bait so much. You know, it will grab some weeds here and there, and even the tail can grab weeds. So, you know, you just, like I said, you want to try different things. Here's a topwater mouse, a jointed mouse. And so you can see, like with this one, if I would have removed the treble hook down here, there is no other hook. So you can't remove this treble hook. You could put a single hook on there if you wanted to, but like this is a dive or float. If you tie here, it's going to float. If you tie here, it's going to dive. And with that diving, it's going to make it go over the weeds, and you know, it could collect some weeds, but if you do the float, it's going to swim right on the surface. And so that's an option there. Jerk minnow baits. So you use like a swim bait jig head here. And the cool thing is with this, yes, it's not rigged weedless either, but it basically can be weedless, because the cool thing is with this setup, you're throwing it down and it's going to dive down. And then you're reeling it in so it's going back up. And then you stop reeling and it's going to go back down. So it's basically just a small jerk minnow, like I said, where you're jerking the action. And what's really cool is you could even find the walleye hiding in those weeds from the northern pike, because that has been done before. So those are just some examples, guys, of like what I would pack for targeting the pike and the weeds. And one of the other cool things is I'll show you guys with this. So they do make some really cool muskie and pike baits. And like you have like these bigger baits. Now these create a lot of action, and these do not dive that deep. If they do dive, they're not going to go that deep. But remember, you want to keep these outside of the weeds so you're not weeding right up. But if you're pitching over weeds, it's something cool to just throw. But again, like I said, with there being multiple treble hooks, probably remove this one just so you're not weeding up. But it's worth a throw out there. Throw some of these bucktail baits. And like here's a Meps right here. So throw this. It's not going to dive that deep. You should be able to work over the weeds. Really good baits there to take. And one of the things that I really do like to throw, and I will grab it. I've got some more here. So we've got some like swim baits. We've got more swim baits. Swim baits are a great thing, like I said, for weedless, so we'll set those there. But the surprise that I have is one of my favorite things that I just love to throw. I love to throw spoons. And I know people say, spoons aren't weedless. Well, guess what? One of the coolest inventions is there is a weedless spoon. Right here, the mouse trap. So what's cool is with this is you can see the hooks aren't even exposed. Look at this setup. So this is one of the coolest setups. And what's awesome is so say a pike comes swimming out of those weeds and it hits it. It's going to bite it. And then the cool thing is that hook deploys. So you avoided the weeds, and then that fish is hooked. So this is strong. This right here, this lure is one definitely to pack in your arsenal. I do really recommend having these in your arsenal when you're after those fish, because there's nothing worse than when you're just reeling in a bunch of weeds that you're not able to catch anything. One of the other things I do love to do is I will throw like a half ounce or a 3/4 ounce spoon over the weeds. And if they're not on the surface, guys, and I can reel fast, I'll crank the weeds. I'll crank the spoon over the weeds to where that spoon is going so fast that you're not weeding up and you're not letting it sink. But remember, these pike have that lateral line, so they feel that vibration, they sense it. And so the cool thing is they're sitting in those weeds, they're watching that lure go so fast through. Well, guess what? It's going to trigger a strike. They will come out of those weeds, and they do come flying out there. So just be ready to know that it's possible that you're going to hook something right away. So those are baits that I strongly recommend to have. And there are more weedless spoons. Here's another weedless spoon. So make sure you have some of those too. I do like to have, this is just a spoon box that I pack. I love to have my spoons organized. I used to always throw them in like I was looking behind me, and I don't have them behind me, but just like these tackle boxes, if you have everything organized, you're not spending so much time. But see, like this, if everything's thrown in here, you got to go and sort through them and be like, well, what am I grabbing, and then you might get a hook in the hand. So here's like a 2-ounce spoon. Probably want to throw that right over the weeds unless you're really wanting to. One of the last baits that I did leave out to this point is, guys, one of the lures that is not often utilized that does catch a lot of northern pike are these gliding baits. Gliding baits only go maybe 1 foot to 2 foot deep, and they're made out of balsa wood. And the cool thing is when you're throwing these baits, you're casting it out. It's reel, jerk, 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 reel, jerk, reel, jerk. And so you're working your arms, but here's the deal. Those fish are seeing this bait go phew, phew, like that. And one of the things too is you can make up the idea of if you want to remove the treble hook so it's not catching a bunch of weeds. But again, if you're working in those weedy areas, you know, let's say you're working in 4 to 10 feet deep, you know that there's weeds around. You can see the weeds under you. Well, guess what? These baits are great search bait because these are going to go right over the weeds, and those pike are going to look at it and be like, what is that bait fish? Ooh, I got to have that. So like I said, this is another lure you want to add to your arsenal. And I strongly recommend having some glide baits, having some swim baits, having a top water lure. You know, definitely, like even this is a floating lure. You know, having like a bait fish that's a floating lure. Great arsenal to have, because you know you want to make sure you bring a variety of lures with you when you're going after pike, because again, just because you have the lures or the tackle doesn't necessarily mean they're going to bite. Again, it's fishing at the end of the day, it's not catching. And so you can go in there, and again, you can't make them always bite. And I've heard it from some of the greatest people that I fished with. You know, like pike are so easy to catch, but yet they're also so challenging. And I completely agree. They are very challenging in some ways because weather can play a role. The temperature is outside, as well as the temperature of the water. If they're staying down deep, they might not even want to hit that day. You know, but like I said, if you're currently working for weeds, like over weeds, and you're trying to catch northern pike, this is what I would definitely pack. And again, you don't have to go out there and break the bank to acquire some of this gear. You know, I will post links in the description for you to find these baits. I strongly recommend just going out there, guys, and just trying and seeing what you guys can catch with. Like I said, definitely pack baits that you know that you're going to be able to rip through those weeds, because there's nothing worse than when you're constantly casting out and you're bringing weeds back in. Obviously, if you're bringing weeds back in, you know that you're letting your lure sit too long down below, and you need to get it up above that to avoid that. And I do strongly encourage, if you are fishing from the bank, I would definitely not go and buy a $15 to $20 lure and throw it from the bank, and if you lose it in the weeds, because there's nothing worse than when you're out there and you're snagged up on weeds, you lose a bait like that. So I'd strongly recommend, if you're doing this from the bank though, I would recommend probably trying some swim baits and some swim bait jig heads, starting there, as well as like some jerk minnows and maybe a couple buzz baits. You know, the buzz baits aren't necessarily that expensive. You can find those at your local retail store and that for a couple dollars just to start. I strongly recommend to do that if you're looking for the northern pike through the weeds. Like I said, you'll find the bass. You'll probably find you might even find trout or perch hiding in there too. We've been able, like I said, find the walleye hiding with the northern pike, which I think is really cool. And I think it's also very brave of like the small walleye hiding there with the big northerns. But hey, again, they're using it for cover. But guys, I want to thank you so much for watching this video today. Make sure, if you haven't already, to subscribe and like our channel, Rushers Real Time. We have many more videos coming out for you all. We're hoping that we're able to get you guys more catches and more success rates of going home happy with your fishing. Again, thank you so much for watching this video. Have a great